Hey folks, Bob Tuskin again at the Free Your Mind Conference, and look who I have the benefit of talking with. Larken Rose, the government rebel himself. Anti-government rebel, yeah, that's right. A government rebel wouldn't be the most nice of titles here. You're not in a cage, which is a good step.
Yeah.
Not at the moment. And
mental or physical.
Mental or physical, and there is a heck of a lot of malware out there, right? That was the basic catch of your talk. Mm-hmm. What was the title for those that didn't get a chance to be here?
Removing mental malware.
And what is mental malware? Let's just give a little taste for those that will see the talk, I'm sure, in the future.
Well, it's an analogy to the computer version of malware, where somebody makes a program to take over your computer and make it serve him instead of you. Basically, the mental version where we're programmed to perceive things and believe things that makes us fuel for some of the nastiest people in the world, acting against our own best interests. And just the talk was pointing out that most of the destruction in the world isn't from individuals being malicious on their own. It's from their programming tricking them into serving nasty people. And sometimes it's as obvious as going off to war and killing each other by the thousands, but even just fueling the machine because we feel obligated to. And if the good people would stop giving all their energy to the bad people, we'd be a lot better off.
Do we need the government, Larken, to save us from the bad people?
No, not only do we not need the gang who calls itself government, we particularly need people to stop imagining that gang has any right to rule.
Right.
Because that is the bad guys. That is the biggest threat to humanity. And it's sort of ironic that the lie that tricks people into being subservient to a ruling class is that, well, you need a big, powerful ruling class to protect you, which comes down to you need somebody bossing you around and taking your money so he can protect you from people who might boss you around and take your money.
What irony.
Yeah, and people really believe it. And I believed it for most of my life, I'm kind of ashamed to say.
At some point you were a semi-status. You were a soft-core status.
Well, I was a status. I mean,
I guess there is no such thing. A status is a status is a status, whether they believe in limited government as a Republican or not.
Yeah, status to me just means you believe in a state. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what flavor or what size, it was still a state. So I was limited status.
So you're telling me that these folks with titles as governors and mayors, city commissioners, and then the people in the fancy costumes with the shiny objects that they wear on their chest, you're telling me that these people are just human beings? That they're not different?
Just barely that, even. Yeah,
well,
they're just us. A lot of them happen to be sociopaths and stuff, but they're just people. And another focus of my talk is the fact that they're not actually even the problem. As nasty and malicious and conniving as they sometimes are, all of their power comes from their victims imagining it to be legitimate. Imagining, I'm glad to pay my taxes and obey the law.
Right.
And if the victims of the control freak stop believing that, then the power of the nasty people just goes away.
It's a cycle of victimization, and every 80 years or so, these people die. And then as long as that system, that mind control is still in place, the same cycle continues. One of your most controversial pieces is when it's okay to kill a cop, when it's okay to shoot a cop.
When should you shoot a cop?
When should you shoot a cop? Oh my
Yes,
gosh,
you heard that right.
Please folks, we don't wish any harm on anyone. Let's get the disclaimer out, even though if you actually read the first sentence or so of the article, you'll see that it's not a manifesto like they accused the Christopher Dormer guy of,
right,
and all this other stuff. It's simply showing that if somebody is violating your natural law rights, if somebody is coming after you, whether or not they have a costume on, or they're a cop, or a guy who works down the street, or it doesn't matter, that you have a right to protect yourself.
Yeah, basically that morality doesn't change because of badges and politician scribbles.
Sure.
And I don't even much bother to put in my answer to the question. It was just, and I knew it was going to make people freak out. And the article even said people are going to freak out. They're going to see the title and have a tantrum and not even read it. And a lot of people did that.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just to get people starting to think, at what point should you disobey violent aggression that's done in the name of law? Because most violent aggression in history has been done in the name of law. the amount of murder committed by private murderers is puny compared to the amount of murder done in the name of law enforcement by all these, nasty regimes in history. And just think how much better history would have been if the people of Russia or the people of Germany or the people of China thought, when should we shoot the cops? When they say we're going to round up all the Jews, maybe you should start shooting them.
Just maybe.
When they say we're going to haul everybody who says anything bad about Stalin, we're going to haul them off to the gulag, maybe you should resist.
But it's kind of a tough thing to say, though, because on one end of the spectrum, I can empathize with those that want to pick and choose their battles. You don't want to necessarily get in a big confrontation. And
right, yeah, martyrdom isn't that helpful.
It's not that helpful. Sometimes you need to, go back a little bit before you can move forward and kind of avoid the confrontation altogether so that you can have the greater good take place. That's a fine line, though, and that's a tough call. What would you say to those out there that say, well, Larken, I agree with you. I hear you. The income tax is garbage. By the way, I was born on April 15th. So every year I'm reminded that. And my son...
What a birthday to have.
My son, July 4th.
I feel your pain.
So here my son is born on the day where we're supposed to have been broken free from taxation without representation, so they say. And here I am born on... Anyways.
Oh, well.
But the point is, back to picking and choosing your battles. What would you say to those people out there that say, Larken, I pay the tax just because I want to have a bigger contribution. I don't want to be put in that cage, although I respect you standing up for that, and I think if we all did, then perhaps we wouldn't have the problem. But because we're all not doing that, I choose to simply... put my tail between my legs and put up with it. What would you say to that?
Yeah, and I totally sympathize with that. And I mean, even when I was having my adventures with the federal extortion racket, I wasn't telling people, hey, everybody do this. I was telling people, hey, everybody watch this. Because I'm specifically doing it in a way that I suggest other people don't do. Like, I got myself in trouble on purpose to publicize what they were going to do. And I said from the beginning, whether I win or lose, they're going to lie and cheat and steal all over the place. I want people to see that.
Right.
And the When Should You Shoot a Cop article, and then the video that Coplock did of the article later, it points out that, the practical question of, comply so as to not be tased or caged or killed, that's, perfectly sensible. Trying to stay alive is a pretty good agenda to have.
I think so.
And so on an individual basis, I tell people, I'm not going to tell you when you should stand up. But if the whole world understands that we don't have an obligation to allow ourselves to be subjected to violent aggression when it's called law, when the idea gets out there, when people are fixed in their heads, like I was just saying in my talk, when you fix their perceptions, the world will fix itself. Whether it's one person disobeying or, now they get stomped on. But when everyone wakes up, it just goes away. And so that's the main thing. Whatever nastiness happens in between, whatever people choose to resist or go along with it or cooperate, we need people to get out of the mental enslavement.
Sure.
Which has to happen before the physical enslavement.
Yeah, you can't jump the gun, so to speak. Well, folks, you heard it from Larken Rose. Let's wake people up to the chains that are invisible but still there. And maybe they're not so invisible, because I see signs of it everywhere. Because if I don't comply, they take a gun, which is a chain, and then they put you in chains, literally, if you don't comply.
Yep.
Larken, what's coming up next? I know you got some projects on the horizon.
Actually, just in a few days, I'll be releasing a massive video project called It Can't Happen Here. The conclusion, which is the opposite of the title. Has to do with the fact that people say, well, all those other tyrannical regimes, we're somehow magically different. So that ended up being like a 90-minute feature-length thing.
It Can't Happen Here. That's the title, right?
Right.
Awesome stuff. I'm looking forward to that. So that's in a couple days.
Yep. It should be out Tuesday, the 30th, April 30th.
Right. And any chance we're going to see Larken Rose running for the President of the United States?
Right after pigs fly by.
Yeah, that was the most sarcastic question of the day. Larken, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you.
Take care.